Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaeli Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. Well, hello there. So today I want to share with you a training that I did inside of my Leadership Academy because I think intuitively we know that patient retention is important, but I don't think that many practices really invest the same resources into innovating for their current customers as they do searching for new ones. In the training, I compare the patient ecosystem to a gas tank with a hole in it. As new patients come in, existing ones leave at the same rate or sometimes even faster. So I explain how to plug that hole and also to avoid burnout while protecting profit margins. And that happens through developing a system for patient retention. This is a super tactical training, but it's just a must listen to for any aesthetic practice or business for that matter. And I hope you find it valuable. Without further ado, here's episode 10, The Power of Patient Retention. Module 1, Building an 8-Figure Foundation. And today we're going to be going into part 3, 8-Figure Patient Experience and Retention. So I want to start by talking a little bit about your business. So think about the state of your business right now. Pretty much need more clients. The more clients you have, the more revenue that comes in, and the fuller essentially your business tank is. So if you think of your business as a gas tank, is your tank full? Okay. So we're constantly trying to fill that tank through the whole sales process and the systems that we talked about last week. But there's a but. There's a hole in the tank. And if there wasn't, then we wouldn't have to be going out to find new clients. Okay. And what that hole is just similar if you were filling your car with gas and you kept putting more gas in or more fuel in your car and you had a hole, you're constantly trying to keep up with keeping that tank full. But what is that? There's a hole in there that is this gas that seems to be leaking out that you just can't keep in the tank. And so what do we do about that? So essentially, compare this to your practice. You have patients that come in, you've worked very hard to acquire them, you've spent money on lead acquisition, your team has been working super hard to nurture prospects to a point that they want to come in and do business with you, and then they don't come back. And so what do we do about it? We fill up the tank more. We invest in more advertising. We go find more patients. We make more offers. We acquire more technology or more products, right? Now, this isn't a bad way of doing business, especially in the beginning when you're building your business. You, like we talked about last week, you have to be constantly focused on sales and selling and bringing patients in the door. However, what I want to do with you guys is teach you how to plug that hole in your gas tank so that you don't have to be working so hard and spending so much money on acquiring new patients when you can simply service and get more revenue from the existing clients that you have. So what happens when we continue to fill that tank by all of those expenses and all that time that we're putting into bringing new patients in is that it ends up leading to burnout. And so we have to kind of reinvent the wheel. We're having new consults with patients all the time. We're going through that whole process of developing that know, like, and trust with them. And it gets exhausting. And so eventually it's going to cut into your profit margins because at some point you're going to end up thinking that feeling or having that knee-jerk reaction to want to discount because you feel like, well, my offer is too high. If I offer a discount, then they're going to be attracted, to come in, or it's going to entice more sales. And that's just not the case. What that ends up doing is killing your profit margins and leading to burnout, like we talked about. So the reality is that we're not going to be able to keep every client. That just is not possible. That's human nature. So I want to talk a little bit about why clients leave. So think about when your patients come in and you see them, that patient that you're like, wow, I haven't seen them in a while. I wonder what happened. So typically there's 4 reasons why they don't come back. One is that they didn't feel special or significant. They felt like they were just a number. They came in, they got their service. Even if they had a good experience, they're happy with their results, but they didn't feel like they were special. So they're just like, I can go somewhere else and feel special, right? They were unhappy with their results or their experience. So maybe something happened with the result and they didn't feel like it lived up to their expectation of, what they had thought they were going to get, or something happened along the lines of their experience with your team, or who knows, it could be something as simple as they had an issue with the parking situation and that frustrated them and they don't want to deal with that anymore. They're bored. Believe it or not, people need to be stimulated. And so they could feel like, well, every time I come in, it's the same thing. And I'm not seeing it's the same old poster or that, those big wall signs or the stand-up banners sitting there. And it's like, that's 6 months old. And they're like, oh, here we are again. They're getting the impression that you're not innovating and you're not kind of keeping up with the times. And so they kind of just get bored and they're like, well, what else is out there? I want to be stimulated. And then finally, this is my biggest pet peeve. They're just totally unaware that you offer other services. Okay. So remember we talked about last week, the 3 keys to a successful sales and marketing system, right? So effective lead generation, where we're bringing in not just a body, not just a lead, but a targeted qualified lead. So effective lead coming into the practice. And then we take that lead through a high quality nurture sequence, right? And this is what we're talking about today. This is the part that is going to make or break your sales success. That is all comes down to the follow-up. We talked about last week, 90% of consumers make a buying decision based on the last 3 businesses that followed up with them. If you weren't one of those businesses, you could be the one that just doesn't get your consumer's business because you're not front of mind. So you have to be staying in front of your audience every single week. And ultimately the goal, if you engage them properly, even every single day, so they're constantly thinking about you and what they're going to be doing next with you. And then having ongoing conversion events, and that's closing the sale at the end. So with that in mind, thinking about that nurture sequence, thinking about that experience, and thinking about how can we plug that hole that is just naturally at the bottom of that gas tank, we need to build a system that's focused on building trust. So there's 2 things I want you to think about right now. 1, getting customers, and 2, keeping them. Because if you're only focused on getting customers and you're putting all your resources and time, money, and energy into that, then you're going to perpetuate that cycle. That hole is going to the gas tank's going to get heavier, that hole is going to get bigger, and you're going to go through that cycle of having to find new customers all the time and have to reinvent that whole onboarding process wheel again. And that can become exhausting and costly. So I really want to focus on step number 2 today. What can we do to make sure that we keep them in our door? Okay. Now, it requires the same amount of energy. So I want you to really make a mindset shift right here to think about this. Those 3 elements, those 3 parts of the sales system, they're all equally as important. So why would you spend so much energy on the first area and none on the second or the third, or vice versa? Okay. I want you to really think about it. It requires the same amount of energy you spent acquiring leads to keep them. Think about, for those of you who are married, when you were dating, right? Like if my husband courted me and was like, it was this whole process of, I want to take you out on dates and I want to show my best self and I want to innovate for you, right? It's the same thing when you're talking about your patients. We're taking them through this whole courting process in the beginning. We're showing our best selves. We're putting our selfies up on Instagram. We're editing videos. We're doing this whole thing for them. We get them in and then it's like, okay, cool, check that box, right? And I'm sure nobody on this call, you guys are amazing, so nobody's intentionally doing this, but this happens sometimes just out of because there's an intentional focus on putting that same sort of energy or putting those systems in place to nurture those patients once they're in the door. And so I want to encourage you to think about this. If it takes the same amount of energy and investment in keeping them, are you putting enough of your effort into that nurturing process? And I want you to think about 3 key areas. 1 is their experience. So that experience, by the way, starts the minute they open the Google search bar, okay? Or a friend tells them about you, or they type your name into Instagram, or they come across a hashtag and there you are. That experience has started well before your Susie at the front answers the phone. but all of that is part of the holistic experience that they're having. So from the acquisition standpoint, from what happens when they come in the door, what happens through the course of their consultation, their treatment, and then ultimately their follow-up, all of that is part of an experience. Number 2 is results. And this is not something I talk a lot about with you guys. It's kind of assumed that we want to make sure that we are doing everything possible. And I'll get into this a little bit more on the business side, how we ensure the best results. But we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence to set that patient up to succeed. And that means that we need to align their expectations and what we're promising with what we're able to deliver for them. And then number 3 is a very overlooked area, and this is customer mindset. So this is an area of actually how are they feeling about their experience and results? And a lot of times we just assume that we know. Well, they posted a selfie of themselves on Instagram, so they're feeling great, right? Or I haven't heard from them, so they must be happy. But what I want to emphasize is that people like to avoid confrontation, so they may not actually take the initiative to tell you if they're unhappy. And so there has to be a process in place to ask how they feel. Have you ever been to a restaurant and you had a bad experience at a restaurant and it was just the food was and it's like, it's not like it was even worth it for you to go out of your way. You're not crazy, so you weren't going to give a bad Yelp review or anything. You just didn't have the best experience or have the best meal. But then when your friend asks you about it, you're going to tell them the truth. It was okay. I felt like I paid too much for what, how the experience I had or the quality of the meal. And so it's incumbent upon us as business owners and our team to be asking how their experience was and how they're feeling. And there's different ways of doing that, but it has to be based on how your practice is, your natural process, so that we're constantly getting that feedback and we're able to adapt our process or the experience that patients are getting based on actual real-time feedback. So last week we talked about super strategies to uncover 100K that is hidden in existing clientele in that database that you have. And the way that we're going to do that is through upselling, cross-selling, and reactivations. Okay, these are ultimately the most underutilized strategies for rapid business growth and also for recurring revenue. So I want you to think about this. What is the value of your customer for their lifetime with you? If a patient came in today and they were with you until the day you sold your business, what would they be worth to your business? And so my goal for you is to think about building a lifetime relationship with your patients to get them a much more substantial result in the end, and then to be able to continue to make valuable offers to them over and over again. And having this mindset and speaking this language with your team is mission critical. A lot of times practices think about that one treatment or the profitability off of one procedure. But if you think about your patients coming in as a human being that has a value associated with them, and that's why with many of you, I have been working through the numbers to see what kind of data are we really tracking and collecting to be able to identify what this value is. Because when you start thinking of your patient more holistically like this, your entire culture, your entire approach, the entire experience that you can offer to your patients, you will see it change. Because you won't be so focused on the quick sale and you won't be so intimidated to upsell your customers while they're there with you, because you have a long-term vision in mind and you can simply put them on a plan, on a treatment plan, on a program that's going to ultimately get them better results over time. And so what I want you to do is to think of categorizing your customers by their potential for growth. So for example, this patient may have a need, right? And part of it is really understanding what their needs are, not looking at your interaction with them so much as treatment focused, but more as them as a holistic human being. And what are they looking to accomplish? Do they want to feel more significant? Do they want to be more competitive in the job market? What is it that's important to them? We talked a lot about this early in, I think, our first session, and we'll continue weaving these concepts into everything we talk about in this academy, because everything ultimately in sales and marketing and running our business comes down to meeting a need that our customer has and an exchange of trust. Okay, so I want you to think about what is their potential for growth with you. So for example, this patient, they want to be competitive in the job market. So they want to look and feel their best. So instead of just talking to them about Botox when they're coming in, take the time to talk to them about an entire treatment program. Or maybe you're looking at that patient and that they're a facelift candidate, but there is a progression for them. So from Botox to filler to chemical peel, IPL, CO2, face type, facelift maintenance program after. So this may sound super basic for you who have established businesses, but I want to teach you why this isn't a standard of care. And it's potentially because of a mindset that we have developed on our own and that we're living with. And that's this. That's the patient coming in and us assuming that they only have so much to spend. So when I spent some time working with Steve Mulholland, he told me, when a patient comes in, if any of you have been to the Cynosure events, you hear him talk about whether your opinion about this or not. I think everyone has a different opinion. That he'll look at the bag they're carrying or, the size of their jewelry, and then he'll kind of put like a number and then their girl will quote higher or lower based on where they are on that scale. And I'm not advocating that that's the way to go. But what I do know about consumers is that they will automatically tell you that they don't have enough money to spend, right? Or you may assume that they don't for some sort of reason. And I'm going to automatically call BS on that because their buying power or their potential is only related to their perception of the value of your offer. So if they're automatically coming out and telling you that I don't have as much money to spend on this, then what I'm going to say to you is that this is your opportunity. Okay. Now going back to the sales system, and it seems like we're talking a lot about sales right now because effective nurture process and planning for patient care over time, long-term treatments and lifetime value of patients really goes back to your mindset and your first experience with the patient. And so many patients who you believe, we automatically think, and when I do the deep dive into your numbers and we start getting nitty gritty and with practices, I often find that they don't have patients on treatment plans because they automatically assume that their patients are already at their highest level of spend with them. And so they're just trying to get the patient to come in and, they're trying to work with them on that specific budget. But in the reality, the patient has a certain amount of income to spend, and then they'll find out that this patient is actually paying for services somewhere else, some of the same services that you guys are offering. So you may have a patient that's coming in you're having a conversation solely focused with them around their mommy makeover, but yet they're going every 3 months next door to get Botox, right? So we got to shift our mindset about treating that patient from a more holistic standpoint and having those conversations early on. Now, I'm not saying rate people of their, make them poor so they can't pay their rent. But what I'm trying to tell you is that we naturally assume that our customers are spending all of their money with us. And what we need to do is showcase all of our offers up front and on a recurring basis to make sure that they know what is available to them. And an important point I want to talk to you about is that if you don't have these conversations with them, that they could potentially, this could perpetuate, we talked about giving the patient the results, that not having these conversations with them could encourage them to have only one portion of a treatment with you rather than the full, higher level, greater, upsold, the full shebang treatment with you where they're really going to get the best outcome. And then they end up leaving because they didn't get the result. And you just assumed that they couldn't pay for that result. And so I want to talk to you about that opportunity and then also what we can do now. So the plan. So number one, I would like for you to address your current patients as with the assumption that you're getting the smallest portion available of their spend. Now think about it. Many times when they're first coming to you, they're not coming in to just roll out the whole bank with you. They want to test you out. They want to try it. They want to see what you're about. They want to ask for the smallest little piece because they want to know, like, test the waters, right? Test before you invest. You guys have heard of this before. And I'm sure many of us abide by that principle in our lives. So they want to come in and just check things out. Is this really the place I want to be? Do I connect with the team? Do I have a good rapport with the physician? Do I like his bedside manner? Does she address me as a human being? Like, do I feel respected? Did I like the process, right? There's a lot that's kind of going on. Now, they likely have a much higher need and want a higher level of service than what they're coming in and specifically asking you for, but they're trying to mitigate their own risk. So if you don't have the conversation with them about getting them on a higher level offer, and I'm talking this in kind of sales terms, but on a more comprehensive treatment plan or procedure that provides better results, then to the point I was making before, they may end up leaving because of the outcome and not the price. So here we are the whole time assuming that they're not going to pay, or I'm not sure, I don't want to stretch them, or telling me they only have a certain amount, or I'm automatically leading with a discount. And then they end up leaving because they didn't get the outcome that they wanted or they expected, because in their mind, they wanted more, but they're testing you and you needed to ask them for it. So why does this all fit into this whole patient retention nurture strategy? Because it really actually starts from the very beginning. The way that you nurture and that you feed patients value through the course of their lifetime with you begins from the day they walk in and sit in your office the first time. Okay. And so that's why I want to encourage you to shift your mindset. It's critical that you shift your mindset today and make these assumptions that they're coming to you because you're the expert and you have more to offer them. Now, your client should be getting a touch point from you or someone on your team every single week if possible, as much as possible. That's why social media is so beautiful, because we can be up to speed on what's going on today in our businesses, and we can be sending direct messages. And I'm going to go into strategies on how other ways we can be doing this. But that is the white glove concierge type of service that patients want. So why did I tell you guys from day one, since you were in boot camp with me, that the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is raise your prices? Because you're setting a standard for your patients about who you are and what you have to offer based on your value as a provider, about your technique, your experience, your solutions. And you don't want to just bring in patients who are just looking for a commodity or a low price. They're not going to value what you have, and they are going to be the ones that put you back into that gas tank cycle and drain your tank. So we need to be thinking from the very beginning about how to fill that tank up. The other thing I want you to start thinking about is what your value is as a provider. Because I know some of you that are listening to this are putting up with basically working for nothing, because you're going through this cycle, endless cycle of discounting offers right up front, and your profit margins are so low, then you need more patients to get the revenue that you need and the profit that you need to pay your staff, but you need more staff to service all of those patients. Does this sound familiar for anyone? So I want to talk to you guys about how to follow up without being salesy. So Shannon put a really cool PDF in the membership site, and I'm going to just kind of go through it with you verbally here. It'll be up for you this afternoon once we get everything posted from the training. But there are a lot of ways that we can follow up and be front of mind with patients without being repetitive or boring or sleazy or salesy, if we are thinking about giving them value. And what I want you guys to remember is that everyone has a different learning style or buying behavior or buying trigger. And so your consumers are not always going to respond to the same type of stimuli. And this goes for your, when I say consumer, I typically mean prospect, but this goes for your existing patients as well. And so they're going to process information and make buying decisions differently. And so really the fortune for you is going to be in the depth and breadth of variety you use in communicating with your patients. This will increase your chances that your audience will actually see and pay attention and hear what you are saying. So this list is 21 ways. I'm going to just really go through this quickly because you guys will have access to this. But we've talked about different channels, right? So wherever you are showing up, and you've seen, I put together PDFs on how to fill your Facebook group and on content strategies behind that you can use on LinkedIn, Instagram. Even if you're not on social media, I highly recommend getting on social media, but you can utilize some of these strategies even within your office as well. Okay, so here's 21 ways that you could follow up besides a standard phone call or email, which are obviously ways to do that. So audios, so people they respond to voice. So yours or even someone else's audio for them to listen to. I love podcasting. So, but you could simply, sometimes even on my Instagram feeds, I will make an audio and splice it on the photo just so like I'm talking through even what the text says there, because it's another stimuli. People lose attention and focus. So it's just something that you can do as a different point of getting their attention. Videos, obviously, we've talked a lot about. They don't even have to be your videos. For example, like this week, I sent an email and attached a video about Starbucks and about a big pivot that they're making in their business, just to hone in on a point and reinforce a point that I was trying to make in general about reinventing your business and your thought processes and meeting consumers where they are right now. So just using, and actually it's a great strategy. So you're not constantly talking about yourself. You could actually be a little more worldly and show other things that are going on that will reinforce your point. And it's kind of just another type of a social proof as well. Like, look, Starbucks is aligned with me, that kind of a concept. Postcards. Believe it or not, snail mail still does work because we're all obviously online, but it could be a little bit more costly, but some people still respond to receiving a nice note in the mail. So that could be a postcard, brochure, a sales introduction, or a letter, right? So one of you guys sent me a really nice kind of email sequence that you're going through with your patients. As they're inquiring about procedures. So maybe it's just something nice written on letterhead, infographics with certain statistics. So something that would show like stats or other information that would be useful for your audience. Again, it doesn't have to be just totally related to specific procedure that you're selling, but just giving them information and helping make them smarter about it. Mailers, handwritten notes, some sort of a special delivery or gift basket, depending on who and what it is. Customize like swag, like some of you have those like really cute little masks. Maybe it's just popping that in the mail, just getting front of mind and adding value for them. Testimonials, so it would be like patient success stories you could send or talk about, case studies, recommendations for resources for them. So maybe a good place to go for some sort of a meal that is like to help your skin glow, like a meal delivery service. I don't know, I'm thinking off the cuff. Articles, insight papers, special offers or promotions that you're running, a coffee, lunch and learn, or like, you could do like a little pop-up lunch and learn in your office or virtually, or like a virtual coffee date, informational ebook, checklists, free guides, application or an offer for a free consultation, just a simple invitation to connect on social media. And I just remind you in this PDF that it takes 16 touches on average to close a sale. And so when you feel like you're being a little too intrusive, you're probably not. And also going back to the dating scenario, I remember my husband, he just was like the one who didn't give up. So there you go. It was like, you're just, being pursued feels good as long as you're pursuing them in a classy and tactful way and not just selling to them all the time, but actually adding value between the process of when you are selling to them. And then I want to go into, I went over this portion yesterday. So if you attended the training that I did in the Tribe Facebook group yesterday, I went over these 10 patient retention strategies. And these are just things that I put this in the form, the PDF is in the form of an audit in the membership site, because I want you guys to actually take this back to your team. And there are check boxes. Are we doing this? Yes. And even next to it, rank, how well are you doing it on a scale of 1 to 10? Okay. Now remember, patients are after immediate gratification. They're humans. We're all human. And so we're looking for significance and convenience. I can order my food and have it here in 30 minutes. Any meal I pretty much want, right? I could get a ride to the airport with, I can do anything from an app. And so we need to think about that consumers are programmed and conditioned to be able to get what they want when they want it, and they want to feel special. And so we're going to do this by developing trust with them. The other thing that trust does, you guys, I talk a lot about trust, is that when you mess up or things don't go perfectly well, your patients are going to know you. And so they're not going to flip out. They're going to be like, that didn't go quite as expected, but I know that Dr. Smith is a great doctor and didn't, would be so embarrassed to know that his staff did XYZ or didn't include this or overdid this. And so they're going to kind of let you slide, and they're going to be a partner with you through the process of finding a solution versus holding you accountable and holding a problem against you. So just as a caveat regarding developing trust with patients. So I'll go through this list quickly in about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we will open up for questions at the end. So number 1 is consistent communication. So please don't just send out the monthly special, right? We've talked before and we'll continue, but we spent a month talking about inspired infrastructure through a Facebook group. Have a place where you can have two-way communication with patients and be communicating with them on an ongoing basis, not just when you're running a special or you want to put your hand out and ask for a sale. And the best way to do this right now, particularly in the state of where we are post-COVID and kind of what I'm considering the gap stage. We're not in the old normal. We're not in the new normal. Everybody's still kind of sitting in this time of uncertainty. Patients are most responsive to messages of safety and comfort. And so we need to focus a lot on content marketing, which means building a platform for ourselves where we can have long-winded, long format conversations with them to build rapport and trust with them. And so please have that consistent communication so they know that they're not just going to see you every quarter or once a month when you're ready to ask for something. Number 2, show more behind the scenes. So I know you guys because I'm working with you. You are working so hard for your patients. You care so much about your patients. You go the extra mile for your patients. You're up at night thinking about your patients. You are taking time away from your families. Show them that. Show behind the scenes, not begrudgingly, but show them the little things that you're doing to your office, the fix-ups, the investments that you're making, the prepping of equipment or supplies before their treatment. Show them and talk about those things so that they know that the things that you're doing for them stem from a much deeper source than just for them to come in from the transaction. So when I'm looking at your guys' Instagrams, I want to see some of that cool stuff of what's going on in your practice, right? What is it like? Plus, we're kind of like creepy individuals that like to spy and know what's going on. It's just the sense of the unknown, and being in on things makes us feel good. So make sure you're showing them what's going on behind the scenes. Number 3, extra special little things. So like, for example, if you're collecting in their patient intake forms their birthdays, give them a call on their birthday. I mean, I can't imagine how many patients that would have the same birthday. Maybe you have 2 on the same day, maybe 4 at the most, like on a crazy day, but take the time. It doesn't even have to be you. Have a staff member pick up the phone and give them a call or a text and just say, we're thinking about you. Happy birthday. That's it. You don't have to ask for anything. If you're a surgeon, flowers after surgery, an Uber ride, maybe delivery instead of pickup if they're local and you have a staff member that's like on the way, have them drop off their products for them so they don't have to come in. Or if it's summertime, you could hire an intern who wants to kind of learn the ropes of your practice, and that could be part of their job. And so just the little type of thing. Something we did in my practice when I was running my practice was we had a valet outside. It was free valet, but we would offer just $2 cash tip for the patient so that they wouldn't have to dig around for cash or feel embarrassed about even pulling up to a free valet and wondering if they were going to have the cash to pay the tip. And so just kind of little things. So I want you guys, when you're going through this audit, to actually make a list of all those little things that you're doing that are extra special. And, also promote those things. If you're thinking about content for your social media, you could be like, hey, by the way, did you know this is a little something extra that we do for our patients? Okay. Number 4, include patients in the future vision of the practice. So tell them, don't just say this happened already, we moved locations, but like, hey, we're looking at a new spot. What do you guys think, A or B? Or should we do more of this or more of that? Kind of make them a part of that process and makes them feel really special. Number 5, respond immediately. You guys, the 24-hour window is out. I talked to you last week about that interview I had with Opticall, and Dylan was telling me that they sent messages, contact form messages online on a Friday to 25 practices to like secret shop them, and 15 of them never even responded. and the rest of them were like mostly on Monday. But consumers are still actively excited about having their needs met over the weekend too. So I would put a policy in place and enforce it with your team that we expect an immediate response for our patients. Number 6, make sure your customer knows the next step. So when are they going to hear from you next? When's the next appointment? Don't let them leave without at least a next step with you. Again, this is back to the concept of their treatment program, and patient retention should be at the forefront of them checking out of your practice before they leave. There should be at least, I will follow up with you in 2 weeks to schedule at the very least. If not, getting an appointment or here's when I'm going to call you. Here's when we're going to email you Friday, or you'll expect to hear from us then. Be constantly having that conversation so that they know, okay, it's a safety thing, basically. Number 7, include them in problem solving. So if there is a problem, instead of being defensive or blaming someone on your team, call them and ask them, apologize and ask them, how do you think we could have done this better? Help me. Let's come up with a solution together. Make sure that they're part of that solution. Number 8, a surprise menu, just like In-N-Out has one, right? Have certain offers that are only available to them. And I'll add on to this. If you're running promotions for new clients only, new patients only eligible, think about them. Think about how they feel. What do you have that's special just for them, right? So if you're putting the same amount of energy, effort, and investment into getting them into your practice, think about what do you have available for them, just them. And maybe they're at a certain VIP level or something, but that there's something that's special for them. Number 9, I've seen this done well, priority scheduling. If you have your systems in place where a certain echelon of a patient has the priority of getting in to see you within 48 hours, et cetera, those types of things. And maybe you even block out a time like in your calendar where that's where you put those patients in. And then number 10, annual treatment plans that align with loyalty programs. So this is a big part of what we've been talking about all day today. So I went through that very quickly. You have the PDF in your membership site. So I highly encourage you to go through that. And I just want to reinforce for you guys today just how important it is to be putting a system in place and being focused on that nurture process, that second step of the sales system. And I want to challenge you to really take action on some of these things, because I bet you're going to reactivate, uncover, and put yourself in a position to upsell and resell to patients that you didn't even know that you were able to. So I will see you guys in the next module, building an 8-figure foundation. Again, the 8-figure CEO mindset. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Fierce Factor. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you subscribe so you can automatically get new shows every week. I'd also love it if you left us a review. And come join the conversation online. If you're an aesthetic industry owner, operator, or leader, please join my free Facebook group, The Tribe of Fierce Aesthetic Leaders, a community of ambitious, purpose-driven professionals who collaborate and share best practices for growth in business and life. I'm honored you tuned in.